So good afternoon and welcome to today's interactive session of Business as Usual. So I'm Audrey Russo and President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Technology Council, and I am joined today by my co-host with Tech Vibe Radio, Jonathan Kirsting, and the Vice President of Visibility at the Tech Council. So a few things about today's call. It would not have been possible without the strong support of our good friends and leaders at Huntington Bank, who stepped up to sponsor this daily series. If you don't know about Huntington, they're actually the largest SBA lender here in Southwestern Pennsylvania. I also want to thank the team at AT&T for sponsoring our ongoing public policy series. They have been a long-standing partner of the council's, and I particularly want to commend their team for all that they're doing at this critical time to help give parents, students, and teachers the tools they need for home learning. They have recently donated $10 million to support that cause. So as a quick programming call tomorrow, we will be joined by Congressman Guy Rushenthaler. Next week, we are looking forward to hosting Christina Cassotis, the CEO of the Airport Authority, and Catherine Egan Kellerman, CEO of the Port Authority, and Congressman Connor Lamb. So stay tuned. So just a little bit about the tech and our format for today's call. Most of you will notice that we have muted your microphones. I ask that you keep your microphones on mute throughout the call. Some of us have a lot of background noise going on around us. We want to ensure that everyone can hear our guest clearly. So with that said, we want this call to be interactive. Take note of the chat box at the bottom of your desktop screen. If you have questions for our guest, type in your question in that box along with your name and company. So we will try to answer as many of these questions as possible. Very important that this section is not for advertising your products. Please only ask questions in the box. So on that note, I am very pleased to announce Dr. Kelly Hunt. She's the District Director for the U.S. Small Business Association. She was with us last week, and she is keeping us informed every day, and we are thrilled to have her back. So good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Kelly, for joining us. And can we just start the session where we left off last week on our interactive session? There have been some improvements to the original disaster loans, and then maybe we can talk about the Paycheck Protection Program. How about we start there?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again. I appreciate the chance to come back and tell you guys what has changed in 1 week. And believe me, it's been a lot. We've kind of been in a whirlwind. So most of you know that last Friday, the president finally had a chance to sign the Coronavirus Act Relief and Economic Securities Act, which we will refer to as the CARES Act, which allocated an additional $350 billion to help small businesses to stay in operation, but to mainly focus on keeping their employees employed and keeping the paychecks coming. So you can go ahead and go through the first slide there. I'm gonna talk to you just quickly about the changes that were made. When I was here last week, we talked about the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. We call that the EIDL loan for short. The EIDL loan was actually came to be in the first stimulus package, but major changes were made to it last Friday in the CARES Act. So we already knew that it was, just for people that may not have been on the call last week, it provided an opportunity for loans for small businesses up to $2 million. The first payment is deferred for 12 months, and that had stayed the same. The interest rate on that 3.75 up to 30-year repayment terms on that. What has really changed is the portal for applying for that loan. So if any of you are on the call who applied for the loan after I was here last week, I give you my sincerest apologies, because the portal, for no other words I can say, was just awful. It wasn't set up to handle the volume of applications that it received, and it was just very difficult to maneuver. Once the CARES Act was passed and the changes were made, we had to take that portal down completely redo that, and we put that back up with a much easier application. Literally, I think it took me 12 minutes to apply for a loan on there myself, and I put the link right there in the slide that you can click on to get right to that application. So the first thing is a much easier portal, just a few pages of things you fill out. You do not upload any documents to this. It is just you answer the questions. Now, the second thing that changed with the CARES Act was that it took this loan and made it not just a loan that is repayable, but it also opened up this loan to have a component to it that I refer to as a grant. The actual definition doesn't say that it's a grant. They call it an advance, but it is an advance that you do not have to pay back. So in other words, it's free money. It is a grant. So that opened up this way to get this money out to the businesses. We're hoping even quicker. The advance is up to $10,000. So you can get up to $10,000. When you're going through, you can go to the next slide. Now I can show you a little bit as I'm talking. This is the new landing page. Like I said, just 5 different steps, very quick to go through. You can go to the next slide. And when you get to the page 4 on the application, you're going to see a box you'll see at the bottom of that slide. And it says, I would like to be considered for an advance up to $10,000. Of course, everyone should check that box. This is part of the loan process. It is a part of it that you do not pay back. So whatever amount that you would be awarded in that advance, whatever the SBA, after looking at your application, determined was an amount that you would get for the advance, does not need to be paid back. So make sure you check that box when you're applying. I saw some questions come in, and
you want to ask?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Questions? So we're trying to make this interactive, but we've gotten a lot of questions that I might be able to bundle.
Yes.
So let me just take a stab. One is, when should we be hearing back regarding these loans?
Mm-hmm.
And did the people who applied online before the rush get through?
Okay, that's 2 great questions. The first thing I want to tell you is, if you applied after I was here last time and you applied through the old portal, you do need to go back into this portal and apply again, because this opens up the opportunity for that $10,000.
Okay.
Like I said, just 10-15 minutes at the most, no uploads, nothing, just go and apply. You should have received an email from the SBA over the weekend telling you to do that, but if you didn't, make sure you go in and reapply. What was the other question?
Well, here's one that says, I applied this morning and called the SBA because when I applied last week, the site was different. I told them that today, and they kept telling me to look back for the 3 circles. So essentially, people have lost their place in line and then they need to reapply. Is that correct?
It could be. I can't verify that for sure. We were told at first it wouldn't be. At first, we were told that you wouldn't have to redo the application, but then they could find no other way to get the people the advance of the $10,000. So, like I said, they are geared up to really get through these applications. So get on there and apply. We're looking at about a 3-week turnaround for approvals on loans. I'm not sure if the advance portion will be quicker than that. Like, you may be able to get that quicker. We don't know that yet. So, but you do have to go back and reapply. Okay.
So once the application submitted through the new portal, is an email sent to the requester confirming the application was received?
I believe that the software is supposed to do that. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I don't have access to that, so I can't see that, but I believe that it will.
Okay. Yeah. People are just trying to wonder where they
are.
Hey,
I understand. And I would much rather just give you the really high level and then allow them to ask the questions. I think that's fantastic.
All right.
So you can skip through this, but as I mentioned before, the EIDL loans are through the SBA, through the Office of Disaster Assistance, not through a bank. The $10,000 up to $10,000 advance is to be used for payroll and for other operating expenses. So to be forgiven, to have that part free, to not have to pay that advance back, you have to use that mainly for 75% of it you need to use for payroll. You can go to the next one. So that is the changes to the EIDL loan. If there's any questions that anybody has on the EIDL loan, I'd be more than happy to answer those before we start on the paycheck protection.
I think we just finished, so I think you're ready to go.
Good, good, okay.
Good
So this is a really exciting loan. If you think loans are exciting, this is actually was created in the CARES Act as well, but this is a loan that is made in more of a traditional manner through our 7A lenders. So all of the, as Audrey had mentioned in the beginning when she introduced, talked about Huntington Bank, these are the Huntington banks and all of the other banks out there that actually do our 7A lending, which are just about every mid to large size bank and even some smaller banks and credit unions. So the Paycheck Protection Program, I'm going to call that the P3 on the webinar, just so I don't have to keep saying that. I call it the P3. It's a loan for to provide like an incentive to a business to keep their employees employed, to keep them being paid. And so we want to keep them on payroll, so we're not flooding the unemployment compensation lines with a lot of people. You know, we want to use that for the people that can't get things like this. So we want to keep people employed, and we want businesses to be able to keep their workers. What's going to happen is if we flood the unemployment compensation and then businesses go to start back up, especially things like restaurants and things where people might not be as committed, you're going to see a lot of places losing employees. So the SBA will forgive. Now this loan can be entirely forgiven or a portion of the loan forgiven if the employees keep their employees, if the employer keeps their employees on payroll. So they're going to look at the 8 weeks from the time they get the loan, and they're going to look at that 8-week period from the time you get the loan 8 weeks out to see if the money was used for payroll and things like that. Now you can use it for monthly expenses like your rent and your interest and your utilities, but if you want to get that whole thing, your whole loan forgiven, so you do not have to pay it back, you need to plan out to use at least 75% of it toward payroll and those types of things.
Oh, okay. So we have a bunch of questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Specifically about this. Jonathan, you want to bundle up some of the questions?
Absolutely. I mean, actually going back to the EIDL loan real quickly, people want to know what is actually going to serve as collateral for those loans.
So the EIDL loan, any loan under $25,000 in EIDL does not need collateral at all. Anything over $25,000 up to $2 million does require collateral, but the entire loan does not have to be collateralized. So if, for instance, if one of the people on the call get a $2 million loan, but they only have $200,000 worth of collateral, the SBA will take what they have, and that will be enough. So
Excellent.
They're going to look at everything they have, but it doesn't have to be fully collateralized.
We also have some participants here that had applied last week for the loan, and they want to know, do they need to reapply in order to get that $10,000 grant?
Yes, if they did not apply since Monday, if the portal that we showed on the slide was not the one that they applied on, if they applied where it had the 3 circles, they must go back and reapply to get that advance.
Okay, so we have lots of questions here again about the payroll protection program, and let's see if I can just start to deal with some of them. Can this PPP be used for subcontractors?
I don't believe so, but that's going to be something that will be spelled out more when we get the SOP, which we're the standard operating procedures that will govern this loan. We expect to have those tonight. Of course, the loan goes live tomorrow. It's going to give us just a few hours to learn everything, but I don't believe so. The language that I've seen so far say employee. An employee would be different than a 1099 or something like that.
So then what about full-time as well as part-time?
It can be full-time or part-time. You know, a lot of the service industries are going to be people that have, you know, part-time employees, but you can use those.
Okay, so can workers staying on the job be given bonuses, and can that be included in this PP loan application? The idea is for retention.
I believe we're talking about salary, benefit packages, vacation, things like that, but I don't think that any language I've seen said bonuses. That could change with the SOP, but I would say probably not. And let me also say that there is a salary cap of $100,000. So
Perfect.
if you've got people that work for you and they're making $250,000, you can only claim $100,000 of that.
So can you stack this PPP loan and the EIDL loan?
Yes, you can. And a lot of people, this is confusing to a lot of people, you can do that, but the thing is you cannot use the same need for each loan, or else you're not going to get the forgiven part or that advance where you don't pay it back. So you need to make sure that, for instance, if you have, you know, some employees that you're using, maybe your office staff under the EIDL loan to get that free $10,000 portion of that, but you're using the rest of your staff on here. So you can't double dip on the need part where you're justifying the need, but you can get both loans, and you can get the forgiveness and the advance both, as long as it's on different needs.
So I have a question in regards to the SBA made some improvements, obviously, and you've talked about that, that will help the tech sector. That personal guarantees, are they gone?
Yeah, if you go move on to the, yeah, you can move on to the next slide. I think I've got some in the next one. Okay, so I'll tell you, to be a small business, so far the only definition we have is less than 500 employees. This could be sole proprietorship, anything, and it also goes for private nonprofits, and you can, you know, look through that. Franchises can apply. Each individual location can apply separately as a franchise location. You could go to the next slide. I think that's where we're going to answer the questions you had. Oh, maybe not there. So that's just the process. You're going to calculate your monthly payroll costs. You're going to deduct anything that would not be covered, which we will be we'll know when that SOP comes out. Go to your lender, and then tomorrow is the day that this goes live. You can go to the next one. So I had mentioned about the payroll costs. The max loan on this can be 2.5 times the average of the total monthly payroll cost. So you're going to take, if you've got 100 employees, you're going to take that payroll cost times 2.5, 2.5. So if it's $1 million a month, that would be 2.5 million. So you're going to do that type of a math to come up with that. I had mentioned that they're capped at 100 grand. Loan payments are deferred for 6 months on this one. So this is only a 2-year grant. A 2-year loan. So it's a 2-year loan. Payments are deferred for 6 months. No collateral at all. No collateral at all. No personal guarantee at all. And no fees. So, I mean, in the world of loans, that is just unheard of. You cannot get free, like, money like this. And to top that all off, it's a 0.5% interest rate. Oh. So 0.5%, maturity of 2 years, and possibly the 100% of the loan could be forgiven if used for salaries and benefits. Okay, so some people are just asking one question. Go ahead, let's do some questions, okay.
Everyone's asking if the slides are available. This is absolutely recorded, and then the slides will be available on our website, exactly where we have everything archived. So people just are continuing to ask that.
Mm-hmm.
Can this PPP be used? The way that you calculate salary is salary at 100K, including fringe and benefits, or is it the base salary of 100K?
That I don't know yet. That
Okay.
will be spelled out in the SOP.
Okay. All right.
But I'm going to, if I had to guess on it, I'm going to say salary and benefits, because it does refer, in some of the literature we already have, it does refer to vacation time and things like that. If you're calculating in days like that, then I would think that it's going to be salary and benefits.
Okay. All right. Well, let's keep going. So okay.
And this is actually the actual application that will be used for the PPP. And I put it on there because I thought that you probably would send the slides out and people could take a look at the application before they even apply, you know, with the bank. I believe that you can actually print out a paper application and just send it into your bank. The SBA in the first, when the coronavirus first started and we started these stimulus programs, the SBA administrator, Jovita Carranza, made some changes to allow electronic signatures. We didn't used to do that. We required a real signature on loan papers. We are waiving that right now and allowing an electronic signature on loan documents for up to 6 months. So the bank would have 6 months to actually get a real signature from someone. But this is the actual loan application. I looked at it last night. I cannot believe it's so easy. It just doesn't seem right. There's, you know, it just is it's a very easy document, and I have it in here. The actual application, I think, is about 2 pages, and then there's a couple pages of instructions, but they're all on there for everyone.
Okay, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's great to know. Let me ask you a third question right now.
Sure.
You have been at the Tech Council extensively lobbying Congress and the leadership of the SBA to review the current language around the term affiliates that could obstruct investment-backed firms such as venture capital and private equity from participating. Is there any update that you have as of today?
I don't have any type of formal update, but I can tell you this. Yesterday, every morning I receive a document called a daily bulletin, and it tells me every newspaper across the country that has published articles that involve the SBA. And yesterday, when I received that bulletin, there were over 25 articles that were published yesterday, including with the administrator in these articles, that were surrounding that topic, that to get this change, to make sure that it included the people that needed the money, that we were, you know, were being left out of that. And so I know that it is a huge issue. We had anticipated the standard operating procedures would be released earlier this week so that we would have time to learn them and then go out and tell everybody every detail about the loan. I got an email last night from my supervisor in DC who told me that the reason that they're not out yet is because there are some major issues that are being considered to be changed in those operating procedures. If you put all those pieces of the puzzle together, it makes me believe, you know, yesterday the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, sent a letter to the SBA administrator requesting this personally be done. I know that there's the lobbying from Silicon Valley all the way to Pittsburgh has been enormous. So if you look at all of those things, I would say that there's a really good shot that that's what's holding these SOPs up. So, and I sure hope that that is true.
I know. Well, thank you so much. We are working so hard to rally across the nation with our peers and other people, other tech companies to rally against us. So we really appreciate the update and any kind of hopefulness in that arena. And if anyone wants to know more about that, just reach out to us at the Tech Council and we'll share with you what we're working on. So we still have a few more questions. Jonathan, are there any that you can grab? You're on mute. Jonathan, you're on mute.
I was going to say, while he's looking, I could tell you that I can actually look on here and pull a couple.
Why don't you pull a couple?
Yeah, I'll just pull a couple. I saw one here.
I got you.
Somebody had mentioned about, what about companies that have already laid people off? And that's, you know, been happening already. With the P3 loan program, the understanding is that when you get this money, you bring them back immediately. But it is understood that the people applying would have probably laid people off already. So you just have to bring them back. So that was one.
See some others?
Another question I had seen earlier pop up was concerning the like rents and utilities and those kinds of things. With both loans, looking at them just as loans, with both loans, those monthly operating expenses are covered by the loan. You can use those loans for your rent, your utilities, you know, anything that you have monthly payments for, like that operating expenses. They are both loans. You can use that. The issue comes in when you're talking about forgiveness or the advance part, that not those parts of the loan that are not, you don't have to pay back. That's when they need to focus more on, at least, you know, the majority of it on salaries and personnel cost.
I just wanted to say I did post the business as usual archive in the chat as well. So if people want to download the documents from this or rewatch this or any of the other business as usuals, it's in the chat box right now. So
somebody asked a question, which loan is a 30-year term? That is the economic injury disaster loan, the EIDL loan. That one, the language is actually, it's up to 30 years. So I would imagine that if you're borrowing $50,000, they're not going to give you a 30-year term on some small amount. But if you're getting a larger loan in the millions, that loan can go out as far as 30 years. That will be decided as you're approaching your closing.
Mm-hmm.
There was a question about looking at payroll. You know, they're looking at the payroll from January 1 till the event happened. I think, like, you know, looking at like the end of March. If you don't have tax returns from last year done, then you can actually just take a look at those 3-month period to see, you know, what that payroll's been. Let me see what else.
What about bringing back employees? That date, that keeps coming up.
Yeah, I don't, in the language we have at this time, it just says that once, you know, you receive them, you immediately bring back your employees. Now, what I'm sure that the SOP will give further clarification to that, to explain, you know, within, you know, 60 days, 30 days, you know, what it will be more done in there. There's a question here, do the funds need to be used in 8 weeks? The funds do not need to be used in 8 weeks, but the funds used in the 8-week period will be the ones that can be forgiven in that loan. So you really want to try to use them for payroll during that 8-week.
So what about businesses that are ordered to shut down? What about those businesses? Any impact here?
Yeah, that would all be the same. You know, what I don't know is how that looks with returning those employees to work, or if it means just the fact that you're going to pay them and they're not going to work, or they're going to telework or do something like that. That'll be, you know, that's a big question that we're really, you know, looking for getting a better answer for. I'm not sure. There's a question about a 501c6. I'm not sure. Right now, the language I have includes a 501c3. And I believe there was one other one on the P3 program. That one is a 501c3. I think on the EIDL loan, it was a different nonprofit. It was a private nonprofit. So if you're a private nonprofit, you can apply for the EIDL. The paycheck protection is just as a 501c3.
Okay, great.
Sole proprietors can absolutely apply. You know, any type of business structure all the way down to sole proprietor can apply for these.
Wow.
Okay,
Such good information.
That's a lot of information. Are there any other questions right now before we move on? I mean, you're amazing. First of all, my hat's off to you.
Absolutely.
Because you are, really working round the clock. I think the appreciation for what you're trying to decipher in times like these is not going unnoticed. We will remember you forever.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Like I said, I'm really trying to, we want to get the information out there as much as we can. Like I mentioned, I've done this application, the EIDL loan application. My husband is a small business owner. These kinds of things affect all of us. And, it's just, really wanting to be out there helping. I wish I had more information, though I hope that the reason we don't is because, they are making some really good changes to that. So hopefully we'll hear more.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. I know that your next 24 hours are definitely going to be very, very lively. There's a couple of more questions, and then we don't want to take any more of your time because I know it's so precious.
Yeah.
If you see they're saying about reducing salaries more than 25%, they reduced the salaries above the 100K annual limit. They gave some examples. 150K to 100K, which is more than 25, etc.
Yeah.
Is there anything
the 25%? 25%, that's two different things. So the salaries have to be capped at $100,000. So it doesn't matter if you make $500,000, you're capped at 100,000. That 25% comes in when you're looking at getting that loan forgiven. At least 75% of that, the amount needs to have gone to salaries. Only 25% of the forgiven amount can be used for your rent and your other monthly expenses. See, you have to keep in mind, it's called the Paycheck Protection Program. Right. So they want 75% of what they forgive to have gone to paychecks. Is the easiest way to think of that. 25% of that can be used for overhead, your monthly costs. But keep in mind, this is just the forgiven part. So say you get a $100,000 loan, and at the end of the 8 weeks, you've been able to use up $80,000 of that for paychecks. Then chances are that $80,000 is going to get approved. You still have $20,000 in that loan, which you can use for anything you want. You might not, there might be people who do get the whole entire 100% of the loan forgiven, but there might be people that get just a portion of the loan forgiven.
Okay, well, we are now at 12:32. We want to make sure that we're being sensitive to everyone's time and providing information in a timely fashion. As I mentioned earlier, I really mean it. Your leadership with the SBA and working round the clock is incredible. We have lots of questions. Jonathan already put out the link to our website where all of these are archived. We'll make sure that we have the actual slides. Stay tuned for more from us at the Tech Council on ways that we can support you. We're working on some things behind the scenes to be effective and efficient for all of you. It's a lot. Tomorrow, I want to thank Huntington Bank. I want to thank AT&T for all of their belief in the work that we're doing to try to help all of you. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow at noon, same time, with Congressman Guy Rushenthaler. So we are excited to hear from him as well. And it's really important for all of you to, have input and to give some feedback in terms of how things are, developing. Again, my hat's off to you, Dr. Hunt. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks. I'm typing on your blog there.
Good, do it. We'll keep it up.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Hopefully we have some people that will apply and get funding and some great changes. As soon as I see that SOP, I will definitely let you guys know.
Thank you, Kelly.
Okay. I'll send you out a copy as soon as we get it. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hello, this is Brian.